And I'm joined by Jay of Grand Theft Audio. How are you doing, bud?
How's it going, man? Yeah, good, not too bad.
Yeah, good, man. So obviously in a couple of weeks' time, you'll be releasing the new album. You're releasing Pass Me The Conch. You've been kind enough to send me the tracks across. Mate, this is a great record.
It really, you like it, yeah?
I'm loving it, mate. From the moment the scrub up kicked in all the way through.
Oh,
it's
cool.
Obviously been a few years since your previous release, to say the least. But
yeah. And I mean, it's really nerve-wracking as well. It's really good to hear someone like who's actually heard it, because until you get some feedback, you don't know. You know what I mean? Like we love it, but you know, we could be the last two nutcases on the planet who like that sort of thing. So you know, yeah, I'm really glad you like it.
No, well, no, you know, I love about this. What I loved about the first record, you know, with you guys, you've always had the electronica element into your sound, and you've equally just gone with each song. Songs are more sort of punk rock, some more and more on the electronica side of it, and it's you know that's prevalent again on this record, where you're just going where the song goes and not pinning yourself to a sound or a genre as such.
And this time as well, I mean, you know, to a certain extent with the first album, there was a sort of criteria, because we signed to a big American label and they wanted singles and they wanted it to sound a certain way. And so there was a bit more right into order with the first one. And this one's a little bit more, you know, off the lead a bit, you know. So it was like, okay, yeah, if you fancy doing that, let's just do that. And, you know, so it worked well like that.
Do you think that, obviously, because it's just you and Ritch now, do you think the songwriting has changed? Even, I guess it has, because it's just you.
Yeah, it's fucking brilliant, because I did it all.
So
I mean, it has changed. I mean, you'd hope it would change, you know what I mean, after this amount of years. You know, you wouldn't want to be doing like Blame Everyone Part 2, you know, just like another Stupid Ass, another We Love You, another, you know, there's always going to be that reference, but it's sort of, you know, we're older, you know, you've got to start, you know, you've heard
22 years since the last one, mate. It's about that change as people, as musicians, as everything else.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even the fact as well, I mean, like, even something as small as like being sober. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, like, you know, I've been sober 5 years, Rich has been sober a couple of years. It changes the dynamic of things, you know. I mean, a great portion of Blame Everyone was written whilst hammered, you know, and played whilst hammered. So, you know, it does make a difference, I think, in your output.
But so you feel like, I mean, obviously, you and Rich came together on this one. What happened with Ralph, by the way?
Oh, Ralph, I mean, he started off when we first...
He was on when you did Ruin Your Mouth. He was involved in that, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. He did the first single with us, and we started. It just like one of those things. Unfortunately, just everyone's at different times in their lives, and you know, it just wasn't going to work for Ralph. So you know, we've all got different things happening.
Yeah, of course.
And that sounds like I'm being political about it, but it's just it's nothing to tell really, other than you know, your lives are all like that, and unfortunately, he just couldn't fit in, you know, with what we were doing. So yeah, there's no sort of ill feeling, as it were. It was just he just can't do it. So you know,
that's fair enough.
Yeah, well, it's you know, it was a massive hole in things, because you know, Ralph, like Chris, was an important part of it. But you know, it's like anything, you sort of adapt, and then we sort of, Rich and I just concentrated on getting the thing brought home, because we still wanted to do it so much, you know, and that's why it's kind of taken so long as well, is because you know it's difficult, you know, when you get older. We've all got families, you've got responsibilities, you've got jobs and all the boring stuff, and it's not the same anymore, where you know, you can't just say, oh, well, I'm just going to devote a year to this and not at the exclusion of everything else. It doesn't work like that. So yeah, so it's been a bit of a labour of love, but kind of worth it, you know. I'm really proud of it, so it's been worth it, I think.
Was that the same with Chris then? It was just a case of it wasn't going to line up?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, again, I mean, things move on, and
yeah.
I mean, Chris was slightly different, because Chris really wasn't involved in writing the first album. He sort of came, it was Ralph and Rich's band or project originally, and then I came into it. And it's always been project sort of based. It was never like a band, you know, like trad band, where it's like a gang and you're all hanging around together. It was kind of like, you know, when I first met Rich and Ralph, it was like, oh, we need a singer to do a couple of tracks. And I think their original idea was to have different singers for different songs and all that. Okay. Yeah, so it kind of went like that. And you know, unfortunately, Chris, the album was kind of done by the time Chris joined. But it was just by that point we had to make a kind of band to go and tour it and whatnot. And it was like, Chris was the obvious choice, because he's, you know, great mates with Rich and myself. And so I was like, yes, got someone to come and play with us for, you know, a couple of years or whatever. And then Chris is like so busy with other stuff. I think Chris was doing the professionals when we started writing again.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
Which I don't think he's doing now, but Chris is like, man, he's the man of multiple things at all times, so he's always really busy. So, you know, if we waited for all the stars to align, I think it would just never happen, you know.
No, I mean, Three Colours Red was technically the first band I saw live. I mean, they were supported.
Oh, really?
Yeah. My dad took me to see Aerosmith when I was 11 at Wembley, and it was the Tug to Twin Towers Ball thing, and Three Colours Red opened up. So that was sort of
wow.
Chris, yeah. I remember being sort of 11 years old and, you know, walking in like quite liking some of my dad's music and walking out going, Dad, can I get that tattoo? And he's like, no.
Yeah, they were an awesome band. I loved them. I thought they were a great band. So we played them loads when I was in Real TV, which is how I sort of made friends with Chris, really, sort of early days, Camden.
Oh, nice, man. So you're saying about obviously the live band there, but you've got Ben Miles and Rob Lane joining you on this tour. So that sounds like it's going to be a cracking band anyway. Soon, Rob a few times live. So
yeah, I mean, those guys are awesome. You know what I mean? Like they've both been amazing, really. Because I mean, although it's not like it's the most technical music in the world to play, but there is something about a band dynamic. You have to have a thing together. You have to have a sort of
you have that feel, otherwise it doesn't.
Yeah, you have to have a synergy together. It sounds really hippie, but you do, because otherwise, you know, it just falls flat on its arse. And if you haven't got that, no matter how much you rehearse, it's just flat. And then, you know, so we didn't know how that was going to turn out, which is why we did the first couple of like warm-up dates, live dates, and Rob and Ben were both just awesome. As soon as we played, it was like, it felt like it had been forever. It was like, what, we're on, wicked. So that's why, like, now we're all, Ritch and I, are sort of like relaxed, and it's like the tour is like wicked. Can't wait to do it now.
So, like, was it always a plan to come back and do another album at some point, and it's just
no plan at all? It was just, I mean, the weird thing with Grand Theft Audio was it was all such a like kind of, it was like we were probably the last sort of bands that had that whirlwind stuff that you see in films, you know, when suddenly you get signed for a ton of money by a big label and your life changes overnight, like winning the lottery, you know, and that doesn't happen anymore. And, you know, for me personally, I went from having been in the bands for like 11 years and never made any money to suddenly overnight having more money than I'd ever had and anyone I knew had ever had. And then, you know, and then being whisked off. And at that point, you know, to all intents and purposes, they're treating you like, well, we want you to be the next Green Day, or we want you to be, you know, so everyone's telling you, right, this is it, it's going to be, you know, and it just happened so quick that when there was no time to sort of take stock of anything. And then at the end of it, it just all happened, and then it just ended really quickly. So there was never any planning of anything. It just, we had an album, we had a band. The first time we ever played in a room together was doing the video for the first band, you know, for the first single. So, you know, it was nuts. It was a really weird experience, a really strange way to work and to do something. But like I say, it's a bit like being a lottery winner. It was just really random. It was like suddenly from 0 to 100 overnight, and then from 100 to 0. So it was just a bit of a
whirlwind. Come around for you guys, you know, coming back together as such. How did that happen?
I don't know. I mean, we'd always sort of remained sort of mates, you know, and I think because you when you go through something that sort of intense, you know, it sort of bonds you a bit, you know, like it's a bit like being in action together, you know what I mean, in combat or something. And there's so you kind of, and obviously they're like, you know, we're sort of really close friends. And it just, I think it was Ralph who really sort of said to me, do you want to start writing some stuff? And it wasn't like, let's write an album or let's do a GTA thing. It was just, you know, I don't know why. It could have been at any time, but at any time before, it probably wouldn't have happened, because it would have been moved at that point, with families and kids where at certain ages, and it just, you know, just all aligned. And then we started working, and then Ritch started joining in, and then really quickly it was like, oh, well, whatever it is we're doing, this is a GTA album, or this is a GTA stuff. It's not a new thing. It's you know, the same, you know, but the same energy between the people still was there, you know, still worked, So that was it really. There was no great master plan of like, and it just so happened it'd been 20 years later, and I think those things have a shelf life. And then, do you know what I mean? It goes past the sort of stage where you're sick of it. I mean, if you were in it, and then suddenly it becomes like you just see all the good again, and you think, oh, actually there was some value in it. And so it's like, oh yeah, you know, and it, you know, you want to kind of go back and just sort of just like buff it up again, you know.
Did you get to that point then, because it was so intense for that short period of time where you just you wanted to go off and just do other things? And
Yeah, no, you know, you wouldn't be, you know, you wouldn't be a beating heart human if you didn't get sick of each other in those intense circumstances, or you know, under a lot of pressure, and you've got nothing to fall back on. So it wasn't like we were a band who'd been going for 5 years, and you know, we were a bunch of guys who were like, right, okay, we've got this massive opportunity. Shit, we better get on with it. And I mean, you're learning, you're doing all your growing up in public, so it's really difficult. And like the first shows we had probably were in America were like the Warp Tour or whatever, and that's a big place to learn your chops in front of, you know, quite a few thousand people with quite a lot of big name bands, and you know, and we it was hard for us in that respect. But you know, we did what we did, and that's the way it went. Yeah, but we definitely, at the end of it, it was grueling, and America's grueling. Like as everyone says, it's all the traveling, and we were there continually for, you know, a few years, and it just was just touring east to west, and just trying to make it happen in America takes a lot of physical work, and you know, and we didn't help ourselves by being pissed all the time.
You've got to do something with your sort of days.
Oh, man, we've done everyone's, we've done yours, we've done everyone's, you know, we've done our share.
So what were your memories of those sort of those first few shows you did as GTA then? Was out in the States, were they
being hit?
Yeah.
They were just really, it was really nerve-wracking on a different level, because like, you know, you could have the competency, but I mean, we'd all played, we'd all been in bands that had done all right, and you know, and obviously Ritch in quite a high-profile band, and Chris more so than me. But I, you know, I'd been in bands that toured, so we knew what we were doing. But it was just, it's hard to remember what it was, because like American audiences are different to English, you know. And at that time, it was that I was watching that documentary on Netflix the other day about the Woodstock '99.
Oh, I watched that the other day. Yeah,
did you see it?
Yeah. I mean, my wife.
Yeah, that really brought back memories for me, because that was the sort of arena we entered into. That sort of that jock rock. I mean, everyone was calling it sports metal then instead of new metal, and all the audiences, it was all like the, you know, like, and it was a bit of a culture shock. I'm not sure if it brings out the worst in you, because you know, Americans like, or at that time, they liked really loud, obvious forms of communication. So there was no nuance about GTA. It was like, all right, we're from England, bang, you know, like, and then, and you know, and it was just learning as you went. Really, they were nerve wracking. That's all I remember about it.
I can imagine if it was anything like the atmosphere going on in that Bloodstock '99 documentary.
Yeah, there were those guys. That when I was watching that thing, I was like, fucking hell, yeah, I remember this. This is, there was that. What freaked me out was suddenly, like in England, people who used to come to gigs at my bands were more from the punk background, and it was more like music lovers and subculture stuff. And then in America, somehow, the same guys who would have been the guys who were kicking shit out of people like you and I at school, well, suddenly they've got music as well. You know what I mean? And it was their thing. And I firmly blame Jackass, man. That's my thing. Right? I just think those guys who watched all the Jackass stuff suddenly got all the style from those blokes, and the tats and the streetwear and all that. And then they took the music as well. And then suddenly the gigs were just full of jocks, you know, like really, like the same guys, like I said, who would have been giving you shit all your life. So it's very odd. Yeah, and then Jews trying to please them, trying to make you like, you know, make them like you, which is even weirder.
Well, so me and my wife sat and watched that documentary, like, and we were both saying it just seemed to us to be obviously the people who were running Woodstock had absolutely no control over anything, and seemingly didn't give a shit either, from what we could see. You mentioned, just didn't care. And then you had, you know, that sort of, like you say, the jock mentality of like, well, we're just going to go and destroy stuff, and you know,
and it was just like so misogynist as well, and like, I mean, those arseholes that run it, that hippie bastard. I mean, never trust a hippie, man. You know what I mean? Like, horrible capitalist hippie bastard. You know, like.
No real hippie has $1 million quid in the bank, do they?
Oh, I thought he was despicable. Out of all the criminals, you could blame it on those kids. I mean, yeah, sure, there was that element there, and it was a thing at the time. But the worst people was that the guys organising it, sitting there, you know, cutting corn, cutting it all back so they could make money, and they kept spewing all this crap about, you know, they kept blaming the kids, blaming the, you know, the staff, blaming everyone. I thought, it's you know, you just. You're responsible. This great big. I mean, the fact you didn't even know the sort of caliber or the sort of the acts you were booking, you didn't even give them the courtesy of finding out what they were about before you booked them, and then you're sitting there, you know, with all these results from it. And I think it's not their fault. It's not the kids' fault. It was, you know, these arsehole organisers, you know.
Well, that was it. It was like when they were speaking about, you know, that they've caught some poor woman getting attacked and all that, and that and then they were talking about the cases of that happening. And I can't remember, it was someone who was involved in, like, one of the organisers anyway, and he basically just referred to it as collateral damage. And you're like,
yeah,
sit there.
That's the guy, but he said, was straight faced in. He said, "Oh, well, it's the same amount of people as a big city, and so on the stats, these amount of people would get attacked in this time." It's like, dude, you own that fucking city. You've got control of it. You know what I mean? It's on you to police it.
Exactly. It's in your control to police it, to make sure everyone else is
is just safe.
You know.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, arseholes.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, that was the environment we were in when we went there in '99. It was very much like that, and it was very much like an arms race for who's going to be in on this new thing, this kind of sports metal, new metal thing, and it did kind of bring out the worst in people, I think.
I think it did at the time, but I think no matter what the scene is, an arsehole will find a way to be an arsehole at the end of the day, won't they?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, it's not. It wasn't exclusive to that. It was just such a culture shock that it was all the like "fuck yeah" brigade, you know, which was sort of a bit numbing and depressing in equal measure, really.
Yeah. That was talking about live shows. We were talking about it a bit earlier with the September tour. They'd starting off in a couple of weeks for yourselves, and obviously CJ Wildheart and Scott Scarry. How did that all come to be? Because when that lineup got announced, me and my mate Daryl, who's come with us to Norwich show, you know, I think me and Daryl both texted each other exactly the same moment, because I got a response from him as I texted him going, "Have you seen this fucking lineup?" You know.
Yeah. Well, I think it was just I don't know the exact details, but I think it was just through CJ really, and obviously, and then talking to Ritch, and I think because of the sort of Wildheart's hiatus or whatever it is, it was just it just made sense to have like those related acts, you know, when we were all sort of available. And for us, it couldn't be more perfect. I mean, me and Ritch had spoken about how are we going to tour this album, or how are we, you know, because it's, you know, we can't go out on our own after 20 years, you know, of being in hibernation. And it was a very difficult thing to sort of think of how to do logistically. I mean, this come up, I mean, that's just made for us, because there's the audience that, you know, it's a great value lineup. If they're the kind of people that like our band, they, you know, they know CJ, they know Scott, they know, and they can't lose. You know, it's a great triple headliner, really. Yeah, so I think it just came through CJ, and then Ritch phoned me out and he was like, "Do you want to do it?" I was like, "Yep." Didn't even think about it. Yep, done. I'll do it on my own if I have to. You know.
I mean, it's hell of a set of dates, man. I mean, you're taking it in from starting off in looking at the dates here now. So starting off the 9th. In 9th, and so yeah, a couple of weeks time, 9th of September in Glasgow, going all the way through to right to the end of the month. So you're pretty much in a full month, more or less, solid touring. You know, 1 or 2 days off here and there.
Yeah, I think there's 2 days off. We're all on the bus together.
Oh yeah, oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it's going to be like the fucking punk rock Grange Hill. I can't wait to see what happens. But I mean, the difference is everyone's cool. That's the nice thing, and we've never done a tour, you know, apart from a tour sober, but I've never done a tour with like as many cool people. So that's going to be a nice thing. There's not going to be anyone who you're doing this. Oh, fucking hell. Yeah. I mean, there might be a few people doing that about me, but I hope not. But yeah, so that's, again, like, that's another thing that's going to happen at this point in your life. You're going to be.
Well, at least you know you're not going to get told to look at the floor if someone walks past you.
Yeah.
But you were talking about with the album itself. Are you releasing any more singles off of it, or are you just letting the album speak for itself now?
I think probably the album will. Yeah, I don't know. I'd like to do at least another single off it, because there's one particular track that I'd like to do, mainly because I'd like to do the video for it and stuff like that. So you know, Trevor.
Okay,
yeah. And I just, but it's not an obvious single, so maybe on the back of the album, it's not the sort of thing that is going to get any radio play or anything like that. So it's just, that's a nice thing now, is you can actually do stuff without being too much of a twat. You can do stuff for the sake of like the art side of it, and go, well, I'm just really proud of that, and I like this, and it's a bit of a different thing, and got a good concept for this and that and the other, and you know, and that's the nice thing about not having to kowtow to like a major label who's, you know, they want like 3-minute pop singles, you know. So yeah, so I think, but we'll see. I mean, we might not, we might just say, well, that's it for that. But I'd like to at least just get a little more of the visual side of it out, and you know, rinse it a little bit further.
Well, you worked long enough on it, so why not?
Yeah, but that's right. Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, at this point, you know, it's not, we're past fucking looks. I think at this point, if you can't do like a bit of self-indulgence and go, oh, I really like, it'd be fun to do that, then, you know, what are you doing it for, you know?
Exactly. So when did you start writing the album as such? When did it?
1997. No, I don't know. Like, no, I think it was probably about, I think probably the first, I mean, that was the other thing. I wrote so much material for it, like tons. I reckon I started having a tally up a little while ago, and I think there must be nearly sort of, I think it must be like 25 plus tracks plus, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I just kept writing and writing and writing. And then we just, you know, hack out the ones that we wanted to sort of fine polish, you know. But yeah, so I think about a year and a half, 2 years ago, probably was when it very first started knocking ideas about. So lockdown time. And that probably played a part in it as well.
Yeah. Did lockdown play a part in any sort of lyrical content or anything like that, do you think? Or just
actually, yeah, on the Load, that track. That's probably really kind of about, I think when I wrote that, it was just at the height of the doom and gloom, you know, like the apocalyptic fucking don't bother doing anything, you might as well burn the house down and drown the children because there's no future. It was all that, you know, it was Boris Johnson like staggering on the telly and going, oh, it's all fucked, you know, like, yeah, that was probably written around the time, so it's probably a lot of it in that.
Nice. You guys self-produced the album then as well, or did you?
Yeah, Ritch did it. Yeah, I'm Ritch the genius. And again, that's one of the things that's taken time, is because we wanted to, you know, do it, and you can't just shortcut that stuff. You have to make all the same mistakes people make learning that production stuff. And obviously, when Ralph bowed out, you know, Ralph being the genius producer was a massive blow to that part of it. So, you know, it took Ritch has worked so hard, you know, on that side of things. And I think orally as well, it sounds great, you know, but he really did, my hat was really off to him, because he really busted his nut learning stuff and trying stuff and finding out and, you know, swatting up. And I really respect that, because I've got the attention span of a gnat. So, you know, just, I had the easy job. I was just like, oh, here's a song, and then make it sound good, you know.
Obviously, we were saying earlier that that Ralph was involved in like Ruin Your Mouth and all that. Did he play on the rest of the album then, or did he just play on the sort of certain singles that he was?
He didn't actually play on anything.
Oh, okay.
No, it's all for this album. It's like a one-man band. It's all pretty much me.
Yeah.
Playing most of the instruments, and then Ritch obviously did the drum programming and drums. Yeah, but he didn't play. But he, you know, he was involved in the sort of production side of it and writing those first couple of singles, I think it was. You know, so that's where his involvement was. It just kind of, unfortunately, we sort of parted ways quite early on in the writing process. So Ritch and I had really done the album effectively.
Do you think it would have changed its sound at all if Ralph had been involved in all the way through? Or do you think?
Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day. I mean, Ralph's just fucking brilliant at. I don't think, you know, blame everyone still, regardless of the songs, is one of the best sonic records that I've ever been involved in. And yeah, undoubtedly Ralph would have brought his filth to it, because he's awesome, you know, he really knows his stuff. But yeah, I was thinking that the other day. It's a shame, because I would like to hear it, but I think Ritch has just done such an amazing job.
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah, well, I think so. I'm not, you know, I'm really proud of how good it sounds, and you know, and he was working with hard material, because I'm no technical genius, so everything I recorded, I gave to him sound like dog shit, and he, you know, he really buffed it into a high shine, you know, which is no joke. It's not as easy as it sounds.
You're too harsh on yourself, mate, I think.
Mate, well, I'll tell you, I'm going to tell this boring story again, because this is my thing. Poor old Ritch. I had this romantic vision. My parents found my very first guitar, my very first electric guitar that I bought myself when I was a kid. Yeah, and it turned up like Excalibur at my parents' house, and I was like, oh, yeah, I got it back, and it's just like a piece of shit, this thing. But I thought, oh, it'd be quite romantic if like I could use this guitar on the album, you know, like, so it's like my first punk rock guitar that I had, you know, Oh, that's all great on paper, but in reality, what it means is that I recorded all the guitar parts for the entire album, gave them to Ritch, and Ritch was like, "This just sounds like shit," you know. So it was like you then had to battle it back into say it sounds great on some stuff now because it's got so much character.
Yeah.
But I was like determined to have that romance of like, oh, it's my first ever guitar, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, I think we pulled it off, but like I said, it didn't make his job much easier. You know, it was pretty fucking ropey. This thing sounds, but we got it in the end.
So Ritch is going to get his own back and use his first set of pots and pans that he took.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So what is the rest of the year and in the sort of 2023 looking for you guys? Like, are you just focusing on the tour at the moment? You got anything else planned there after?
Yeah, it's a tour. I mean, the whole big thing has been pushing to get towards the album release and then this tour to just get it out there. I mean, like I said, it's such a monumental effort to do between you. And I have to say as well, like our manager, Julia Hannon, who's just been amazing, because without the same thing, we wouldn't have got it out. It's just a labour of love, you know what I mean? And we were so spoiled and so lazy when we had a big label, like so many people at the time. You just didn't realise. I just didn't know how much goes into it. It's constant. You have to have someone like Julia who's just on the ball, knows what to do, knows when to do it, can plan for two fuckwits like us who couldn't plan, you know, breakfast cereal. And, you know, and she's just sort of really pulled it all together. So, you know, it's been just getting to that, get this tour, and then I think we'll regroup and go, okay, what next? You know, because that's our reintroduction back into the world, really, with the album coming out and then actually being able to see us live again. So we'll have a head count after that, I think.
No, nice one, man. Well, I'm looking forward to the Norwich show, so I'll see you over that. One last thing before I enjoy your evening, mate. At the beginning of the interview, I'm going to play Trevor, as you've mentioned it. So why not? Let's get that one played. But what yours would you like to play at the end of the interview, and we'll sort of sandwich the interview in the middle?
Oh, I think probably Gods of Rock.
Yeah,
I like that one. And that one is that's the mythical punk rock guitar on that one.
Oh, is it?
We'll sneak that in, yeah. And the story with that one is that poor old Ben, who then was learning it to play live, right. As we found out, the other thing is that guitar, I'd also used a tuner that came from the same part of the loft that doesn't actually tune in concert pitch, so everything is slightly sharp. So it's just make it more fucking difficult for everyone. That's actually recorded in some strange tuning that doesn't fit in with any other tuner. So yeah, I'll have it for that alone, I think.
So that's a bit of a tribute to Ben then, and then the work.
Yeah, poor old shaggy Ben, but he manages it masterfully. Nothing phases him.
Brilliant. All right, man. Well, thanks for your time, Joe. Been great to talk to you, man.
Yeah, and all the best. I hope you start feeling a bit better, man.
Oh, cheers, buddy.
Look after yourself. And when you get to Norwich, come just hit us up, man. Get Julie's details, didn't you? Just make sure you're on the guest list and whatnot, and come and say hello and hang out.
Oh, nice one, man. We'll do. I'll see you in a couple of weeks then.
Wicked, man. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, pal. Bye, mate.
Yeah. Cheers.